Tanzania Temtek. My name is Cathy Richardson, and today I'm in conversation with Dr. Tom Strong, and he is a master therapist, formerly working at the University of Calgary, and we're going to be talking about his approach to therapy and counseling interviews, and then he's going to do a demonstration interview with me. And so, just to give a bit of background, Tom's approach is collaborative, it's discursive in that it focuses on language, it focuses on social constructivism and context in the real world. So, we'll be right back.
All right.
So I'm back. I'm back with Dr. Tom Strong, and I'm really delighted that we're going to have this conversation today. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Tom, just to introduce yourself and locate your work a little bit.
All right. So I'm Tom Strong, and I'm an emeritus professor of counseling psychology from the University of Calgary. And for me, that meant getting to work with people like Carl Tom and other folks at the University of Calgary. And I may end up talking about that at some point, but um, currently I live on the unceded land of the Cowichan peoples. And for those who don't know where that is, in sort of settler terms, I'm about an hour north of Victoria on Vancouver Island in a town that the settlers called Duncan. So, and it's early in the morning and I'm waking up as we go here. I just had a swim. So hopefully I'm in gear. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, so I enjoyed our conversation at the coffee shop last week or
Right.
so. And I just circled a few of the words that really stood out to me when you were describing your work. So I heard the word relational, um, linguistic, social constructionist, and I heard the word betweenness. Of course, you talked about dignity as well, but as a Métis person, I really I resonate with that word betweenness. So you talked a little bit about being influenced by ethnomethodology, and yeah, we talked about dialogue, being dialogue. How do people respond from their own histories? So do you want to just try to massage all that a little bit?
Okay. Yeah, let's see how I do. And you can ask me more questions if you need and all that. But I was a person who graduated in the late 1980s from my counseling psychology program. And what that meant at the time was I was just on the cusp of what became narrative solution focused, a number of what I now call social constructionist or discursive approaches to therapy. And what I mean by that is these are approaches that take very seriously that language doesn't exist apart from what happens between people as they use it. And that is a very different view of language than would be the case where we sort of say, well, the language pre-exists us, or things are what they're already named. And I know in one way that can be kind of almost vertigo inducing, but in another way, what it does is reminds us that when we use language, it really is about what we create between us that matters in that dialogue.
Mhm.
And that is the between us stuff that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So I don't know. How am I doing?
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. And I guess from an indigenous perspective, I can really resonate because these words that we use to describe everything, we used to use indigenous words, right?
Right.
And then yeah, so it's taking up the idea that we're not just born into a container that's completely pre-existing. We create our lives through living them, right?
Right. And just to build on that, if you're okay, I don't want to start with the idea that the language is already between us. So you just gave a very good example of in order to co-construct or have a relationship based on shared language, I need to understand your language and then try to match it with whatever I can bring to that encounter we have. And out of that comes a language we share. And I think that that is always going to be a little balancing act.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it wrong, maybe, and you're going to let me know, if that isn't quite right or whatever. So, but it also means that I don't start with the idea necessarily that the language you bring is one that gets all the dimensions of what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
So I always start with the idea that language is partial. And there may be something in our partial use that really helps us do what we need to do, but there'll often be cases where that partial leaves out really important stuff that is in your experience that we need to put language to.
Hmm. Yeah. And so what you're describing, this kind of um, negotiation that we do together, it's really I guess, grounded in how much relationality, equality, that kind of rapport that we have. Because I think in both our works, we critique abuses of power, and there's so much in modernistic and sometimes, medical approaches where one person really is the expert, and to challenge their language use or their understanding can put you in a, a risky position. And so I think we share that idea that we try to create as much equity or equality in our being together so that that exploration can be really possible. Is that
Yeah, and you've got me thinking about something that I think I probably raised with you when we had coffee. And it's the idea that, and it's going to sound hokey, but I'm going to say the three P's I've come to associate with language use. One is that there always is a poetic quality to language. There's something about how we take our language and bestow it on this thing we're relating to or this person we're relating to. And hopefully that enables us to have the kind of relationship we want. That would be one way of thinking about it. There is also, though, a kind of politics about language use. And that's where the power thing comes in, and for me, it has two dimensions. One is the more explicit, using the example of settler language to, indigenous languages. There often will be a very explicit hierarchy or an identifiable hierarchy. But the last part of it, it gets into the part about how we get patterned by language, which was one of the P's. And there is a way in which language use develops its own implicit politics. And by that, I mean, it's we've gotten used to thinking and talking in particular ways with other people. And we've become almost that is what our normal is. And it may bring us back to this poetics that we haven't got adequate language because we've been normalized to a particular use of language. So,
Mhm. Yeah, well, it'll be fun to see how this plays out, because I always, uh, like to ask the therapists that I'm talking with if they would do a little demonstration. And I want to tell you, I really thought hard about what do I want to talk about with Tom? Like, what could I bring up? And then just yesterday, something kind of clarified for me. So would it be okay if I just shared that and you just do what you do, and we'll just explore something
all
together.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's pretty real for me. I'm not making it up, but um
Right.
I wanted to talk about this notion of self-discipline in in relation to me and my life, and what it means to have a disability, and try to work with the things that society and the medical profession tell you that you should do. And
Mhm.
my own, I guess, thoughts about that is I can't do what other people do. And other people just make so many assumptions about, oh, like you should just go for a walk every day or whatever. And I really can't do those things. It's not good for my body and I have a lot of pain. And so I was thinking about, again, the tension between my own preferences and what that public discourse is about. Does that make sense?
Sure. And if I was to try to give you my paraphrase of what you just said, it does sound like you've got this kind of odd intersection. Odd is the wrong word. It perhaps is a bit well, you use the word tension, and it's where your sense of what others mean by self-discipline bumps up against what you as a person with a disability must negotiate or navigate as you deal with life.
Yeah, and I think why this came up for me now is I'm in this beautiful position of living in a home by myself. I've never really lived by myself in my whole life, other than maybe for, a month or something in between roommates and residences and relationships. And so I'm taking in the sumptuousness of being alone and trying, just like learning about myself when I'm not bumping into up with other people. What do I like to do? I can do I can do anything I want here because I'm really not that accountable to other people when so I can decide what I want to eat and drink. I can decide if I want to stay home or go out, when I want to sleep, all these things. And it's quite luxurious in a way, but also I don't know where, my limits are around, that's where the health discourse comes in. Oh, you should go to bed at this time, or you should only, have one gin and tonic and
Right,
not five or whatever, like don't eat too much chocolate or I can, or so I'm learning
right.
about myself. But I will tell you that even when I sit with my beloved friends and at this age that I am at right now, people are starting to talk about their aches and pains almost all the time, and they talk about their
Sorry
medication,
about that.
and
Yeah,
they're talking about supplements. And uh, you know, I love my friends, and I'm sorry if they're not feeling well, but it really bores me. I don't want to talk about illnesses and aches and pains, and you should try this new product or this vitamin. It drives me bananas, and I'm polite. I don't usually say anything, but I just want to do what I want to do. And I guess the tension is like, how long do you want to live? If it's true that being healthy in certain ways will extend your time here on this beautiful
wow.
planet.
So, yeah, well, one way I could hear what you're saying is that you are having to live with other people's discourse for whatever health means to them. And that includes their self-management or whatever, as part of that. And there's something about that that doesn't sit right with you right now.
Yeah, and I don't want to be critical of other people. I just don't want to think about that stuff. When I just watch my mind, it's goes to places like, how can I get myself to the south of France and sit on a beach in the sun, even though you're not supposed to sit in the sun, have an Aperol spritz and go swimming every day, and decide what novel I want to read, or whatever. But it's I'm just not interested in, like, I don't see health as a hobby, if you know what I mean.
Uh, well, and it does strike me that this is a kind of new space, the way you're describing it, that you're kind of feeling out about, well, what can I do here that I really want to do? And it needn't be complicated by this other stuff these other people are living by. I need to get my own version of the space that I'm moving into. Some
Yeah.
of it is that sumptuousness that you were talking about, I think, so.
Yeah, like really leaning into life. And I suppose that some of the things that I do wouldn't be considered super healthy, but it's when I think about it, I have a certain kind of restlessness. I don't really like to like work out or go to the gym. Sometimes I will, but would rather just stay at home and bead or knit or like make I like to make things with my hands, and I like to look at beautiful things, and whether that's the mountain outside or movies or whatever. And I just feel like, yeah, I'm just getting hit all the time with you should be doing this, or, don't forget, you don't want to get osteoporosis, whatever, or diabetes. And yeah, so I guess I'm asking, like, how do people push away discourses that are everywhere but are unhelpful, really?
Well, yeah, I mean, that sounds like a really interesting rhetorical question to dive in on, I mean, um, on the one hand, what I hear is you now have the luxury almost of being in this independence isn't the right word, but you have this ability to decide your own stuff, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it. But others have already got their minds made up about what they're going to be doing with their stuff and their time and all of that. And there's something about what they bring to the conversation or their interactions with you that, uh, yeah, it isn't yours. It isn't what you want to take on, you know.
No. And I guess part of the reason I'm sorting it out for myself here with you is I teach a class called First Peoples and Health. And um so I guess I want to have some clear ideas about it, but I also feel like naturally I'm a bit of a glutton, and and I'm kind of okay with that.
Well, I mean, I heard the kind of, so maybe tell me a little bit about that part.
Oh, well, I just think of, so much about living on the planet right now is really difficult. You look at this context of resources and wars and attacks and genocide and all the things that we're really struggling, because I do consider myself to be like a member of the human community, and I want to contribute in a good way. But when I can't manage or process all that, I think, so what are the beautiful things about living here? And I do th like I think of food, I think of drink, I think of like growing flowers and herbs, and cooking, and just like making beautiful things to eat and beautiful things to look at through art, and doing what I can in my own world. And yeah, sometimes I don't fall into the typical thing notion of balance, I guess.
Well, I mean, I'll use a word and it may not fit for you, but it sounds like you're in a kind of liminal space. And, there is an element of what you're describing. Because I was an academic doing the high flying life there for a good chunk of time. All I wanted to do when I had holidays was just drop everything and just have this uncontested time where I could do whatever I wanted to do. And, at the same time, there was all this other stuff going on around me about, some of what you're describing about the should stuff. Like, I had a blood clot back then and a number of different things. But what I hear you're dealing with is you're having this experience of having the space now and having to decide how you want to use it. And the only reason I raise that other stuff is I don't know if it is any kind of backdrop against which you're sorting this out, against. But does that make any sense to say it that way?
Yeah, I think so. I'm in a lovely experimental ground to learn about myself right now. Um, I think of this term magical thinking and how that's so pathologized, like even in cognitive behavioral therapy or um, you know, people think you're not being reasonable. So I think, the medical establishment would say, if you want to live a long life, you should have a balance between, exercise and eating lots of fiber and vegetables, healthy food. So that's one way. And you shouldn't drink or smoke or do lots of other things, be in the sun too much, that kind of stuff. And then I think, okay, well, maybe that's one way, but certainly luck plays a role in it. Um, like lots of people who ride their bikes all over the place, they get hit by cars. That's not lucky, right? So I think, like I believe in magic, and I think, well, that's maybe one way. Another way is like I can just visualize myself living a long, happy life and having grandchildren and doing what I want and traveling. And for me, that's just as probable a way to get there. And if I have good luck, I will. And if I have bad luck, maybe something else will happen. Um, so yeah, I guess I am in a liminal space too, in a way that people would find very irrational. But I think we have some power to create our reality, and that's why I want to just keep thinking of beautiful things and happy things, and my preferences. Does that
And
make
I wanted to ask you a little bit about, because I did hear that as you fashion this new life, whatever it's going to be in this space, with your own prescriptions of your own choosing and all that kind of stuff, there is this other kind of backdrop, which is you are, I'm going to use this language, it may not fit for you, but you're a kind of leader in the sense that you're going to be teaching a course on First Nations health, and there you are. Well, this is me and my imagining. I mean, what is it like to try to fit that into this new person that you're wanting to be in this space?
Mhm. Well, I'm restructuring it because I don't know if it just came to me. I don't know if it makes sense in the bigger picture, but I have been teaching about, okay, I want everyone to choose a health goal for themselves, and we're going to look at change processes, and you're going to journal and get support and see how far you get with your one goal in this class. And I'm going to introduce a bunch of indigenous processes and theories and ideas about that. So that's what I've been doing. But there's been a few issues that I've become really concerned about for young people. So I'm going to focus more on particular issues like how do you handle rejection?
Uh,
Yeah.
sure.
And how do you handle conflict in your friend groups? Because I see so many young people getting like feeling very sad and lonely and miserable because they've had a conflict with somebody that they cared about and they don't really know how to resolve it. So they lose friends. And you see it a lot in teaching when you put people in groups. There's often one person in the group that people don't want to work with. Um, and I've been just, saying, okay, you don't have to work with that person. But I wanted to offer more like indigenous processes on actually how to look at resolving differences of opinion or things that made you uncomfortable. So that's one part. But the other part is I worry so much about whenever we see all these shooters on the news, like people that shoot other people, and many of them are young people. Many of these young people have been really rejected. I think that one of the most profound things that we can do is learn how to handle rejection when people don't want to be our friend or they don't want to date us or they don't want to invite us to that conference, to learn how to take that and process that in a way that doesn't make us hard or hateful. And I've been thinking a lot about this question, how can we as humans, when we are hurt, decide that we're not going to hurt other people. We're not going to take revenge. We're not going to hold on to that, but that we can admit that, yeah, we've been hurt by somebody. And because of that, and because of knowing how terrible that feels, we're committing to nonviolence. Those are the things that I've been thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, what one of the ways I heard you was that um, how can people stay relational when they're hurt? And what I mean by that is not necessarily the person that might have hurt them they stay relational with, but how do they stay connected and talking with people as they do their whatever. I hate this word processing, but they move through whatever the hurt is, you
Mhm,
know, uh, and I don't know how that sounds, but I mean it does strike me that even your sort of outcast group member is an example of somebody who is maybe they're just not used to having relational resources for them in those moments, and I don't know what that means to the other people who are around them
mhm.
because now they're having forged relationships as opposed to, well, I would guess you're not working with like small communities where they all have history with each other. These are relatively, yeah, okay. Uh, so yeah, what does it mean to do relation repair or when it's awkward or whenever it's, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's why I want to teach some skills around that, but I also try to help form a community in the classroom between the students
Yeah,
that when they leave, they have some stronger relationships. People need friends. We don't talk so much about friendship as something really
right.
important. We talk about
Mhm.
belonging, but that's maybe not quite the same as friendship. Yeah.
Right.
So,
One of the this will be nerdy theory talk, but one of the things that's really been interesting for me as a social constructionist is this idea that through our relationships, and I don't mean only with people, but through our relationships, we develop niches. And a classroom is a good example of a niche. And what does it mean to have a niche that everybody can do it, is connected and inclusive and all of that kind of stuff, and still deal with, the inevitable upsets and, missteps, all of that kind of stuff that happen.
hmm. Yeah, I think I guess I've seen a lot where I don't think young people are always learning about these things or being taught. So I wanted to get more explicit about that. And and I guess you'll see that my bias around, health and well-being is very psychological and emotional. It's not just about physical fitness and having a good diet, right?
Oh yeah, and I mean personally, and as this will sound odd as a psychologist, I've struggled with the idea that what we're talking about is psychological.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very social. It's
Right.
like you said.
Even right down to the kind of things our niches create as permission structures of sorts for people to be able to talk about things and all of that kind of way of thinking
Mhm.
um, and I mean what you're getting with a lot of these young people I imagine is they're coming in down these kind of tubes that the algorithms of their phones or whatever are creating for them, and you're having to present them with a relational way of doing things. Some of will be very easy for some and very complicated for others.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. And I often teach through the idea of the medicine wheel that we're going to look at the different aspects of ourself in a social and ecological context. And so it makes sense to bring up these different aspects of the self, how we think, how we feel, and what our emotions are telling us or how they guide us. And do we have a spiritual aspect in our life that helps us? And yeah, the intellectual part. I think, yeah, I think it's a well-rounded way to offer it, but I'm just, yeah, wanting to focus a little bit on micro skills. And I guess that's what I'm looking at in my own life. Like, what are the things that are almost like habits that you cultivate? Is it that you can do every day that makes you feel, uh, yeah, more connected, like life is worth living, and I'm exercising some agency. I'm doing what I want to do, not following some popular cultural wisdom necessarily.
Right. Well, I mean, where I'm hearing, what we talked about initially and where we're at now, where I hear the potential crossover is in the sort of idea of what does it mean to be in a somewhat new situation, resisting some of the normal calls of medicalized ways of doing things, uh, while fashioning a kind of way of being and doing and all of that that enables you to move through, a more preferred way of doing things. And, somewhere in that classroom, there'll be how do they negotiate their preferences with each other and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I don't know to what extent the medicine wheel and the traditions they would bring from their own communities are resources in that sense, to talk about it and, move through that.
Yeah, it's just a tool for exploration. Every I think, indigenous people has their own frameworks for
Uh,
well-being, but it's just a process that we can use to explore more deeply what's important to each of us individually and also collectively. Yeah, and I guess the other thing I'm thinking about in relation to me having my own preferences is that I am noticing as I age that I want to move more slowly, and I'm not interested in um working on I don't know, muscle tone or whatever. Like, I'd like to be super fit and healthy and everything, but I just don't care enough about it to put in the work. And I guess I just asking permission to feel okay about that.
right. Right. Well, who in your circle would support you in
Mhm.
that way?
Um, yeah, it's interesting to think about that in my, I guess in my political or women's circle or feminist circle, there's a lot of talk about oh, what is even the word? Like avoiding fat shaming and like, you know,
Right.
body positivity and
Yeah.
sexual positivity. And so those people would say, right on, just like do everything wrong. Yay. Like be good trouble. And but just like in the mainstream, when you're out together with family or a handful of friends or whatever, you still hear lots of comments about yeah, you shouldn't be too obese or just the
Right.
little side comments about how you should be, even with people that I really care about. And again, it's like people are telling me, oh, you should take estrogen or this or that. And I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, I did start taking some pills for high blood pressure just because um I lost my mom last year and she died of basically high blood pressure but not having a doctor. And then I think through that experience I had that, so I thought I'm just going to take those pills, but I'm not going to talk about it every day with everybody. So,
Right. Um, yeah, what's it like to negotiate this new space without her?
with what? Without her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm coming to realize that grief one of the things that grief does is cause a kind of uh, restlessness. And I'm just trying to understand that better. Because I think the things that I prefer to do now are probably different than what they're going to be in a couple of years once I've settled into the idea that she isn't here anymore because I'm now the matriarch of the family. I'm the oldest one in the family. And so that's probably why I'm thinking about longevity. How can I have longevity without having to work at it?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, as you try to answer that question in this new space, where do you feel like you're coming up short?
Uh, oh, well, just that I think maybe I don't want to get into detail, but some of the things that I'm doing, I think other people will think that's not very healthy. Like, you should be doing something else differently or instead. Yeah. I don't know, like
So,
just maybe how I manage money or how I spend or don't save or yeah. I think it's about short-term self-gratification versus longer term. I think right now I feel the need to aim for that more quick gratification, whereas when I'm feeling more I guess used to living without my mom, I'll probably become more sensible again, something like that. Mhm.
okay. I was wondering if alongside that word gratification, there's also justification as another word that you've struggled with.
Um,
To
yeah,
to others, to yourself, you know.
I think I've always done things my own way. And,
Yeah.
people have always tried to throw these people at me like financial advisors or
Yeah,
life
yeah.
insurance salespeople or like investing. You should do this and you should put your money here and you should live like all the sensible things. And I really have been a non-sensible person, probably my whole adult life anyway. So.
I mean, and you're a research chair, you know. So somehow you managed to make part of that work for you, you know. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to dismiss it at that, but I mean, I'm struck by how you would say that, and you know, alongside that are all the other things that you've accomplished and all of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess part of it is like if there's areas of my life that are slightly addictive, work is one of them, right? Yeah. That
Yeah,
helps.
occupational hazard, right? So yeah.
It just seems to be convenient that that like writing comes easy to me and working long hours, especially when you can think about ideas. And I mean, I complain a lot about my job in an institution, but it is a real privilege actually to get paid to think and to write and to talk to people and bring people together. So it's kind of a coincidence that some of those things I really like to do have value in the professional world.
I mean, how is it in terms of the balance of what you like to do and what you loathe, let's say, or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess part of it is you can steer conversations towards things you're interested in and decide who you will interview, who will be the guest speaker that you will invite, and how will you structure these so-called research gatherings that bring people together to share knowledge. So luckily, I've been able to do that in my own way, follow my preferences, bring in some magic and nonsensicalness, I guess, or just beyond the typical corporate capitalist kind of. modernist way of thinking about things. So I guess I'm just really fortunate that parts of my preferences and who I am overlap with what's needed for that work. Mm.
Sure. And I mean, I guess I was wondering as you're saying that, are there any key things that are being left out? You know?
Okay, yeah, I guess I just also secretly or openly gravitate to other people who are kooky, like non-conventional and have yeah, bizarre things to talk about in a good way to keep a
Mhm.
kind of exploration going. I guess I remember there was a book once, it was called The Closing of the American Mind. And I
All
feel
right,
like
right.
the way that I didn't read it, but I like the title. The way that we think about things, eh, I think the way a kind of exploration and openness has really diminished, I guess, North America or whatever. And I really want to fluff up the edges of those conversations and keep, yeah, bringing in some magic, unconventionality. Yeah, to explore the places in the closet that need to be dusted out, or you know what I mean? Things that have been left out.
Um,
Yeah.
so it almost sounds like I was going to say seeking permission to indulge yourself, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but it does sound like that is part of what's been missing is there's not as much of that as you'd like.
Yeah. Yeah. I would like there to be more of that. And I think maybe it exists somewhere else. I travel a lot kind of looking for that. But yeah, there's some liminal spaces and
When do
there's
you
still
feel closest to seeing it, transpire? Like when does it seem like you almost have it, and
well, when I'm in indigenous ceremony, that's kind of in a way otherworldly. And sometimes when I travel to new places that I don't understand, then I appreciate the newness of that and the learning in that. Mm.
yeah, so it does sound like this space that you want to create for yourself and for your class will have this kind of sense of wonder or awe or magical, that kind of thing. And you want that.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and I don't know what what it's like to try to make that happen or what competes for that occurring and all of that. But
Yeah, I'll have to keep thinking about that. But I appreciate having these moments to explore this with you. It will um, get me some thinking some nice new thinks.
right. Well, I mean, one of the ways that I'm hearing you reminds me of, I mean, I sort of washed up in Duncan here at, Cowitson Land, um, on a year's sort of buyout at the end of my academic career. And I had a lot to do in that year. And then it was like all of a sudden I had this space that I didn't really know what to do with, and I could be moving forward on the same basis that I'd been living my life before that, or and there are lots of shoulds around, I mean, I should do this, and I should do that. What does it mean to find and navigate, negotiate a new life, like, or negotiate a new aspect of life that wasn't possible in the old regime, so to speak.
Hmm. Yeah, I can really relate. I think I'm somewhere in there too. I have a few more years left, but having had a little sabbatical gave me yeah, some I guess freshness in my living. Mm,
Right.
yeah.
And is there a way in which you want to carry forward the sense of the space you're in? I've been using this word space, and I don't know if it's comfortable or fits for you, but um, you want to carry forward into how you're going to go back to doing your academic thing, whenever that happens.
Yeah, in a way, I'd like it to be kind of a movable feast.
Right.
We'll see. I have a very busy fall ahead, but I think that I've been able to, regenerate in some ways, and I hope to try to carry this new sense of it's not exactly freedom, but carving out a space for myself to, I guess, listen to myself and indulge in my preferences.
Right. And you've got people who would understand one, and maybe even share what this new space could look like. There are people that you're able to stay connected to, and uh, who would be encouraging of how you would do this new space in this way that you want to do, your preferences kind of thing.
I do, and I think a lot of them are artists because
Okay,
some of them think outside the box almost all the time, and I try to
sure.
help them navigate the the box when they're in the institution, but their lives are really based on creativity and what I would call like lovely kookiness and just yeah, making art and dance and things. So that community is inspiration for me.
Right, because one of the ways we started this conversation was talking about how there was around you people who were sort of bringing in this kind of medicalized way of thinking about what you need to be doing there, Cathy, and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I guess they'll always be there, but I mean, in what way have you got these other people you can help keep the dream alive kind of deal, And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important. And I didn't say it before, but I think part of it is, my daughter takes really good care of me. But I had cancer before, and I think she was really afraid that I was going to die.
okay,
And so she's always,
right,
cooking me healthy food and making sure that I live uh,
right.
in a sustainable way. And so that's part of it. And so being able to step out and be with the community that I just mentioned, it gives me a lot of freedom. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Does your daughter know about this? Almost sounds like aspirational space, um, in a way that she can hear about it and not feel like she's being countered on the other stuff that.
Well, we have a lot of fun together as well. So I
Yeah,
think it's
good.
a bit of both. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And she would understand why you're craving, more of the artist magic, that kind of stuff in your life as you think about whatever this next phase will be.
Yeah. And I think my kids understand that they had a quite a unconventional mother. I think they've come to terms with that. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
they're more conventional
Yeah,
than I am generally. Yeah.
yeah, who will, from the sounds of it, stay unconventional, and aims to be unconventional, and um, I mean, have we been talking in the areas where you would wanted to talk here today?
Yeah, I think so. I really just wanted to explore some of these yeah, these like you said, these spaces and yeah, what's going on for me and things that I'm thinking about. Um, though it was really helpful. Yeah.
Well, and yeah, I'm really mindful that you've kind of had the luxury of, what a sabbatical does. I don't know, when does it end? I don't want to bring down the big black curtain or anything like that, but I mean, you're in the last few months of it. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I start teaching in September. So,
Right.
yeah.
And what is it you want to carry forward from this sabbatical into the next,
Mhm.
we phase?
Oh, well, in terms of the teaching, I think I want to help people or give people some kind of permission just to respect themselves and their preferences, and understanding that we make certain choices in certain contexts, like I mentioned, in a context of grieving, for example, and that we should be gentle with ourselves because when the context change, our choices and our needs change. And yeah, I just want to try to keep some space for the things that are unstructured and
Right.
playful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, in the courses that you teach, you're not having to be driven by content mastery or any of that kind of stuff, are you? I mean, there isn't like a curriculum you're supposed to address. You have a lot of latitude over that, I would think, right?
Yeah, last time I had a really great time teaching on the Indian Act, and I
Oh
got
yeah.
the class to put on the Indian Act cabaret, and it was fabulous.
All right.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. So
Great.
I try to, I try to find activities that, that keep me fueled and alive.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to overstep, but if I use this word, what do you want to model for them? I mean, because some of what you're asking of them, you're also wanting to do yourself, I gather. Um,
Yeah.
is that word jarring? Yeah.
Oh, not particularly. I think
Yeah.
I understand what you mean. I I think that it's okay to be not well behaved in a kind of way.
Right.
Like that we don't have to conform too much. Of course, as a teacher, when you know, talk about resistance or rebelling, you don't want them to do it against you. That's
Right. Yeah. And I mean,
yeah.
I was an associate dean and occasionally had to work with profs who students felt like, okay, this prof has overtaken our class with their stuff, kind of thing, and all that. But I guess where I was going was with this idea of here you are fashioning what is healthy for you, and you're inviting them to fashion what's healthy for them. And you're both drawing on tradition in part to do that. And you're both also having to deal with all these medicalized ways of being all around them, that uh, in one sense, some of those are very isolating kind of ways in which that discourse operates, so
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope to model for them that there's many different ways of being and that you can draw from your culture, your values, your grandparents, your ancestors, the land, whatever informs you and yeah, makes you feel like, your life is worth living here. Hmm.
yeah, I felt like that wasn't your word, but I wanted to at least kind of test drive it with you, and it sounds like there's an element of it that fits.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
hmm. So, with respect to what you would hope we would talk about today, did we end up in a place where you feel like we got the sort of gist, or is there another aspect to it that you'd kind of like to build on?
No, that feels really complete. I'm sure that, in next week or whatever, I'll get to the next level of, okay, I've put those ideas together and have a few new questions. But yeah, no, for now, I think I tried to I tried to articulate some of the things that I'm feeling. Like you said, we have to work with the language that we have or that we can find and that we have access to. And
Well, and can I ask you about where we started? Because it did sound like we started with others suggesting you do more of the medicalized stuff with yourself, and that, their idea of health was not necessarily where you were at with where you wanted to go and pursuing your preferred ways of well-being.
yeah, yeah, the word well behaved comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
there's a
Who
recording.
gets to
Well, they
define that word,
have it.
right? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I don't really want to behave in the ways that other people tell me that I should.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, every once in a while I veer off in theory land, and you're now talking technologies of the self in my books. You know, others sort of bring this is, where they get into the whole idea of regimes and all of that kind of stuff, the apparatus that makes us who we are and all that kind of thing. And never do I think of that as singular, but there's an element of how something comes to dominate over time that, and maybe that's the wrong word for you, but that's where we started. And I wondered, okay, do you have enough space with that going on, knowing that that will probably still be there for you to fashion what you need to fashion in this niche that you created for yourself or space?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like making a little vision board with pictures or words for
Right,
you're feeling at the moment and what you want to draw more into your life. I feel like I've been doing that.
right.
And again,
Yeah,
I just want to say, like, I have friends that are unwell, and it's not that I don't want to hear about how they're
right,
suffering. I have energy to listen to that. I
yeah,
just I just don't want people to recommend supplements to me.
right, right. And you're able to pursue your own path without having them be disappointed in you or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I gathered they were scared about you at one point, though. There was that the cancer scare and that kind of thing, and that's part of where they're coming from.
Oh, I suppose so, especially the people the most close to me. But I guess that's a little bit different than just the public discourse or if you watch I don't know if you watch TV in the morning all the ads are directed to sick seniors right
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Yeah. Well, I'm really interested in how, in the work that you do, how this is my stereotype, so you jump on me if I got this wrong. But I'm very interested in how First Nations have been able to take what they find useful in, different kinds of technologies and other things, and then incorporate that into what it is that they do going forward that is in a way allows them to extend traditions, but in new ways and that kind of thing. And I don't know if there's an element of that that you're trying to do with your own life about, what is it I want to bring from the old, medical regime that, whether or not I want to draw on it at all, or what is it that, I want to take forward as my way of doing things when it comes to my health.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I think a lot about how people managed before.
Yeah.
And I've been exploring my Métis identity for a long time and wrote my dissertation about some aspect of that. And I'm also interested in, my ancestors that came from Europe and pre-industrial societies and looking at, yes, how people considered well-being, how they used information, how they read the land and symbols and different. So I'm interested in all sorts of knowledges right now. Yeah.
Right. And looking more historically and more to the communities that you're most familiar with. I mean, it sounds like you're in this phase where you're kind of recharging and then fashioning whatever the next version of you will be going forward. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering what historically, those there would be elements of those practices where people are going at it real hard and then they kind of slow it down and say, well, we're not going to do it exactly that way anymore. I mean, is there an element of that you've been kind of sussing out?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we think a lot about this in the universities right now with, you know, with AI and new technologies, as you're saying. And I don't really, I mean, I know there's aspects of that kind of thing that are frightening for people, but I just look at them as like a tool. Like AI is just a tool that can summarize a bunch of articles for you.
Exactly.
Really, I
Right.
I'm not particularly frightened by that. And yeah, like you said, I can pick and choose. And what I guess how I assess if something is going to be helpful, it basically, if it has a relation to social justice for me. Yeah. If it understands that uh, many people are oppressed and they resist, and dignity is important, those are the kinds of things I look for. If there's not an analysis of, you know, social class or different power differentials, then I don't think it's very relevant, actually. Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're okay with where we ended up here today,
Perfect.
you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I think
and
I appreciate you know, hearing the questions that you came up with, and the also
um,
the way that we could kind of
sure.
align ourselves together with them.
One of the things that I'm doing very consciously, and you probably are very aware of this, is I want to make my language contestable. So one of the things I often do if I volunteer something, it's with the idea that this may or may not be useful, you know, rebuff it if you need to, all of that kind of thing. Because if it isn't, then I don't want to keep building on this thing on the assumption that I've, implanted this idea in somebody, and then they're going to have to use it, on my terms, no less, and all that.
Yeah, I see it as an offering,
Yeah,
and we can try to refine it and get a more precise term, or just work with it. Because I think even if a word is imperfect, we often have some kind of shared understanding about what we mean, right?
right.
Yeah.
And we might find another word. I love this phrase that I keep using in some of my writing. It's the idea of linguistic poverty, and there'll be places where the words just come up short,
Yeah.
and we need better words, and all that kind of stuff. So,
Hmm. It's true. I notice that a lot in our work with response-based practice. We're often inventing words just because they don't really exist, you know,
right,
to express what we need to
sure,
say. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, that makes total sense to me. And well, I mean, I'm glad that we were able to reroute our time. I'm sorry about all of that, having to spring that on you.
Oh,
But
mhm.
and I mean, we're connected, right? We've got this history that goes back, I think, when you actually sat in on Murray's exam when that was probably almost 10, anyway, more than that, almost 15 years ago,
Right. Yeah.
so and then there's all of the Allen and I was talking about Nick Todd today, I mean, so those are our circles that we share, kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's been really fun to reconnect with you and
yeah,
to, yeah, learn more about your work. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, I do get nerdy, so I'm, I'm ready to have people say, no, I think so, and all that. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
thanks to everybody
Yeah.
listening.
All right.
Have a wonderful
Okay.
day.
I'm glad we could do this. Yeah.
Okay.
All righty. Bye bye. Yeah.